All right, welcome. I want to welcome everybody to the Character of a Leader's workshop. We're on part 4, where we're going to be going over developing effective communication skills. Developing effective communicational skills. One of the things that I've come to find is that, we all communicate differently. We all receive the things that we hear differently. So, what does it actually take to be a good communicator? So, out of my book, and if you haven't, go to Amazon. You can pick up my book on Amazon. Support a brother. Down at the bottom there, you'll see the link that's running across. Um, I'm trying to find a way to where I can actually get it out there to where individuals can get it and be able to just click on a link. But until then, it's right there. So you guys can write it down. All right, there we go. All right, so let's get started. So, developing effective communicational skills. How are you when you communicate with others? Whether it be in the workplace, whether it be with family members, whether it be with your wife, your husband, how are you in communicating what you feel, what you think, or what you're doing? From the book I wrote here, effective communication can be defined as the ability to share information with others in a way that is clear, concise, and easily understood. So, I guess the question is, when you communicate, are individuals grasping what you're trying to say? Are you communicating in a clear fashion? Are you concise? Are you straight to the point of what it is that you are trying to communicate with the individual? And is it easily understood? Is your point getting across without you having to go around the block and say this or bring up this or that and the third? All right. It says it's not just about what you say, but also how you say it. I know many a times, I would tell people it's not what you're saying to me, it's how you're saying it. Because the way you're saying it, you coming like you ready to do some things. You know what I mean? So it's not actually just what you're saying, but it's how it's being delivered. How it's being delivered. So let's take a look at one of the greatest communicators that ever hit the earth, Yeshua HaMashiach, the Christ. It says in Mark chapter 1 and verse 22, it says in there, it says, the people were astonished by his teaching. They were astonished. How could you be astonished if you didn't understand? So they must have understood. He must have been straight to the point because you had individuals saying, okay, what do I do now since you've told me this? You know what I mean? So communicating, we must be clear, concise, and make it easily understood. So let's look at a couple of areas where we can take from this and and grow in having better communicational skills. I wrote in here, I said, historically, men have been less likely than women to communicate openly about their feelings and emotions. This has often resulted in misunderstandings and conflict in relationships. Have you ever tried to share something with your mate or family member or even with your boss, and in the delivery they're taking it in a way that you did not mean it, so you come back and say, well, no, I didn't mean it like that, what I meant to say. See, we have to be concise, straight to the point, and make it easily understood. It goes on to say, in the workplace, poor communication has led to lost opportunities and career advancements in how you communicate what it is that you're saying to your boss or to your team, to your wife, to your children. By learning to communicate effectively, men can improve their chances for success in all areas of life, in all areas of life. So communication is key. Communication is key. I mean, we converse, we talk, we share who we are, we receive who they are, we talk, and we must be able to do it in a way that individuals can understand. One of the things that we must understand also is that there's a how can I put it? There's a verbal communication, but there's also a nonverbal communication. What do I mean? Great question. We can talk, but your body can speak louder than anything that you can say. So your posture may have a lot to do with why people are taking you the wrong way. Are you saying something pleasant, but you in a fighting stance, or you got your arms folded? You know what I mean? Things like this. So I wrote verbal communication includes the words that we use as well as our tone of voice and reflections. Nonverbal cues include our body language, eye contact, and facial expressions. All of these factors can affect how our message is received. So again, it's not about just what you say. It's about, are you looking them in the eye? It's about your facial expression. You got a frown on your face when you're trying to give someone a compliment, and your body language. All of these things play a key part in your communication. I also wrote here, I said, giving a good communication skills involve adjusting our communication style to fit the situation and the individual. So again, if you went to a comedy club, the comedian will say a joke, but only half the room would laugh, or not even half, maybe just a few. We're different. We receive things different. We react to things differently. So when you're communicating with someone, you can't communicate with everyone the exact same way because people are different. They receive different. They receive different. So I wrote down here, for example, when giving a presentation to a large group, you will use different words and body language than you would if you were having a one-on-one conversation. It is also important to be aware of cultural differences in communication styles. That's very important because, people from other countries don't communicate the way that we do. I wrote here, what may be considered polite and respectful in one culture may seem to be impolite or even offensive in others. When communicating with someone from a different culture, it is important to consider these differences. So this is why it's important to understand other cultures, how they move, how they groove, so that when you come in contact, you will be able to be polite and not move as you would assume, but understand their culture and what brings them peace and pleasure from a conversation. Next off, let's take a look at listening. Let's look at, are you a good listener? So they have that one thing they say, God gave you one mouth and two ears for a reason, and I believe that's true because it's so important to listen. You can learn so much from people and the conversations by listening. But how can we become a better listener than what we are right now? Okay, here's some of the things that good listeners receive from just being a good listener. A good listener can build trust and rapport, understanding others' points of views, and resolving conflict. Now, in contrast, poor listeners tend to be dismissive or judgmental or quick to anger. As a result, they often miss important details and information. And as a result, they are also less effective in both their personal and professional lives. So, being a good listener can give you the ability of open a lot more doors for you. Open a lot more doors for you because you can build trust. People feel that what they're saying is important when you're listening. Now, a good listener can be a power. Excuse me, being a good listener can be a powerful tool for gaining respect and influence as well. Respect and influence. But unfortunately, listening earnestly to others is becoming an increasingly rare thing that we're doing today, based on the fast-paced world that we're in. We want to get it. We want to get it quick. So if you got something you want to say it quick. And I gotta go. That's something. Take the time to listen to what others have to say. It can stand out in the crowd or help you to stand out in the crowd, because people don't listen today. They want to talk, but they don't want to listen. So being a good listener, you'll be able to stand out in the crowd, in the workplace, with family, with friends, and in your relationship. Women love when you just take the time to listen. I remember, we men, we have this problem. Your wife or your significant other will begin to share a problem, and we want to fix it. So we just come and we want to tell them how they can do, but sometimes they just want us to listen. So, men, we just need to become better listeners in the home, and happy life is a happy wife. All right. So, let's next talk a little bit about avoiding distractions. But before we go there, let's look at this. Let's look at this. Someone that actually listens compared to someone that doesn't. How does it make you feel when you have a conversation with someone who doesn't seem to be listening to you? Is it frustrating, or sometimes even hurtful, because you might be sharing some emotion, some real stuff, especially in relationships. And when you feel like the individual's not paying attention, it makes you feel like they don't care. And in that, there's that emotion, and what comes with that emotion? A reaction, and the reaction is not a pleasant one. All right. Now, what about an individual that takes the time to listen? It makes you feel like they're genuinely interested in what you have to say. I mean, they're looking you in your eye, they're asking you follow-up questions, and he seems genuinely engaged in the conversation. Genuinely engaged in the conversation. With that type of listener, you feel more energized in stating what you have to say, and you're enjoying sharing it. You don't feel any negativity, because this individual is taking the time to listen to what we have to say. And we all crave this type of connection with others that will listen to us genuinely and not just faint the funk just to get on to the next thing. All right, avoiding distractions. This is key, because we're living in a time today where we are just so distracted. Notifications from Facebook, TikTok, Snapchat, and all the other places, can pull us from being a effective listener. So avoiding distractions. What are some of the things that we can do? What are some of the things that we could do? But before we go on that, here, let me read this, what I wrote. I wrote, this can be difficult in our modern world, where we are consistently bombarded with notifications and requests from our attention, for our attention. When talking to someone, put away your phone and other devices that may distract your focus from the conversation. That's a great tool. When you're having a conversation with someone, when you're having a conversation with your significant other or your wife, or a team member, if you're in a management position or supervisory position, put away your phone or put it on silent. That's even better, because if you put it away and it goes off, it's going to distract you. Put it on silent. That'll make that person feel like you really want to hear what they have to say. It goes on to say, if you're having a meeting, close the door to minimize outside distractions. Let the person know that they have your full attention. And with you doing these things and them feeling that way, they're more than likely to come and speak with you about situations and circumstances that they feel is bothering them in the workplace, because they know that you will take the time to genuinely pay attention to what they're saying. Sometimes it helps to remove yourself from any physical distractions. If you are in a noisy but noisy or crowded place, it will be more difficult to focus on what the other person is saying. So try to find a quiet place where you and the other individual can sit down and talk comfortably. Sit down and talk comfortably. These things again will assist you in growing to be a better leader. Communication is key, but not just in what you say, it's about what you need to hear. And you can't hear what an individual has to say if you're in a crowded and noisy area, or your notification is always going off. And I'm totally guilty for that. I'm guilty. My notifications go off. I'm usually in a crowded place or doing something. So I too need to get back into some of these tools in which I wrote about. So if y'all ain't getting none out of it, it's reminding me of some things. And, I want to be a great leader. And to be a great leader, sometimes you got to be a great follower. So following books and following people that are doing the things that you feel will make you a better leader, do them. Do them. Don't just talk about them, be about them. All right. Mhm. Mhm. All right. So, there's a huge importance of being uh, our eye contact in communicating. Big, big reward in that. One of the things I've come to find is that, when individuals look to the left or to the right, they're lying about something. And, individuals that can't seem to look you in your eye, they don't feel too good about themselves and things like this, or if they're guilty, things like this. But eye contact is very important. According to psychology, uh, there are a few reasons why making eye contact is so important when listening to someone. Now, I wrote this first, it helps to create a connection with the other person. When you have eye to eye contact with another person, you're looking into their soul as they're looking into your soul. Bible says the eyes are the windows to the soul. All right. When we make eye contact, we are effectively saying that we are present and engaged in the conversation. We are present and engaged in the conversation. Also, eye contact can help us better understand what the other person is saying. Now, studies have shown that people who make eye contact while listening are better able to remember details following the conversation. So, as you're making eye contact, you're able to receive and store away the information in which you have received rather than forgetting it because you're really not paying too much attention being your eye contact. Okay. It says it can be tempting to look at your phone. It could be tempting to look at the clock. We get all kind of distractions, people walking by, certain noises, things like this. But looking at the person shows that you value their time and what want to hear what they have to say. It also communicates to them that they are worth your time and energy, worth your time and energy. So if you're speaking to your boss at work, or you being the boss, you're speaking to your employees, not looking them in the eye is doing you a huge disfavor. Going to work tomorrow, look them in the eye. Tonight, when you get home or when you watch this afterwards, talking to your mate or them talking to you, look them in their eye and see if it makes a difference. Now, I ain't going, you're going to have to do it more than once, but begin to use this tool in your conversation and see if it makes a difference. If it makes a difference. All right, being patient. Being patient. You know, they say patience is a virtue. Now, it applies so much when it comes to being an effective communicator in the workplace or at home or wherever you may be. When you're having a conversation, it is easy to get caught up in your own thoughts and perspectives. And I think this gets, well, it gets me in a lot of trouble. But you know, when individuals begin to talk, you begin to think. And see, being in sales, this was something that we'd want to do, stay 2 or 3 steps ahead of the individual. So we're thinking about what we're going to be saying while they're speaking so that we can be prepared for the next thing we're going to say. And I think we all do this in some way, shape, or form. You know, we're either thinking about the lie we're going to tell while they're telling us, what were you doing at 9 o'clock? You know, why didn't you answer your phone? We're already thinking about the lie. You know, these are just some scenarios that go on. Okay. So listening to an individual when they are talking, sometimes we got to shut our own brain down because we have our own thoughts and our own perspectives pertaining to what an individual says. But if we don't give them the opportunity to share everything, we may misconstrue what they're saying and react in a way that was not meant in what they were saying. Make sense? See, we may want to jump in and share our opinion before the other person is finished talking. However, we must resist this urge and give the other person time to speak. Now, this shows patience in letting them speak and uh, holding on to the thoughts that we have without interrupting plays a key element in being a good communicator. Show patience by letting them finish their thoughts without interrupting. Not only will this show that you value their opinion, but it also gives you a better understanding of their perspective. Why? Because you've gotten all the information to make a decision on what direction or how you're going to respond to what the individual is saying. Now, it can be difficult. Sometimes you might have to bite your tongue when you disagree with someone, but try to keep an open mind. Try to keep an open mind. It's hard. it's it's a hard thing to do, but it can be done. I put it like this. This is one of my issues because I'm one that, you know, if something's being said and I disagree, I'm having to bite my tongue and hold on, you know, and I'm preparing for what I'm gonna say. But sometimes, you know, I have to learn just to listen because what they're saying and how I'm taking it may be wrong. Now, what I've learned in that is I go back and say, now let me make sure this is what you're saying. So I share it in how I think they're saying it. And if I'm wrong, then I'm like, well, help me to understand because I'm taking it this way. You know what I mean? Because, you know, I want to avoid a conflict at all costs when there really doesn't need to be one. Okay. So there's ways that we can work around that. In my book, it says it is easy to get defensive when we feel like we're being attacked, but this only makes communication more difficult. If the other person feels like they are being heard, they are less likely to listen to what you have to say. So instead of getting wrapped up in your own opinion, try to understand where the other person is coming from. Only then can you begin to find common ground. And that's the goal. If you don't agree, at least try to find common ground. What we try to do is we try to get them to see things from our perspective as they're trying to get us to see things from their perspective. And all we're doing from that point is going back and forth or debating. So finding a common ground, hey, that's a great thing. Last but not least, we're going to be looking at being clear and concise. Being clear and concise. What I wrote here is when communicating with others, it is important to be clear about what you're trying to say. This means using language that is both understandable to you as well as the individual. It also means avoiding jargon and technical terms that might not be familiar to your audience. You know, sometimes people try to make themselves look like something they're not. They try to use big words, you know, and all these type of things. But sometimes those big words people don't understand. And if they don't understand it, they're not really going to understand what you're trying to say. So look at your audience, look at the individuals that you're speaking with, and use terminologies and jargon that they can understand. You know, and then sometimes we make ourselves look like a fool because we get around some individuals that, you know, may have a little bit more knowledge in what we do. So we try to use words and make ourselves look like fools because we don't even understand the definition. We just heard it being said by someone before. So stick with what you know. Stick with what you know. All right, being concise. Being concise. This means being brief and to the point. You don't have to, you know, beat around the bush and go around the, you know, do all that. Just go straight for what it is. See, when you're bombarded with too much information, it can be easy to get lost in the shuffle and miss the point entirely. Instead, try to focus on one main message and make sure that all of your supporting points are related to that message. That way, individuals aren't being bombarded with 3 or 4 different topics all at one time, to where when they respond, they don't know what to respond to because there's so many different topics in this one thing. So, you know, be straight to the point with this and then go to that and then go to the other. That way you can get everything wrapped up, taken care of. The understanding can be received, and you can go on and being merry-go-lucky friends. But you know, sometimes, you know, in the workplace and with you know, supervisors, or you being the supervisor, sometimes, you know, being straight to the point is a great thing, and it will really assist you as well as your team to get things resolved quicker and people not leaving frustrated or angry. Last thing, think before you speak. This is so important. Think about what you're going to say before you say it. You know, sometimes we can be in an emotional conversation, and what we do is we allow our emotions to speak for us. But in a lot of that, we're having to come back and apologize for the things we said, because once it comes out your mouth, it's going to hit a person. And if it hits them in a negative way, you saying sorry, hey, they'll accept it, but they're still kind of bitter pertaining to what you said. To where if you could just think about what you're going to say before you say it, that way you can deliver what you need to deliver to an individual with love and respect, and you guys can walk away being friends. I wrote here, I put, take a moment to consider what you want to say before you begin speaking. This will help you to organize your thoughts and choose the most important points to communicate. It's better to take a few extra seconds to plan what you want to say than to try to wing it and risk getting tongue tied or saying something inaccurate or saying something inaccurate. So this week, and like I told you guys last week, you know, I want to stay at about 30 to 45 minutes because, you know, too much information can lose individuals. But I recommend you guys go out, buy the book. It's on Amazon. It's scrolling down at the bottom there, so you can get the book and finish up in what it is that I have written for those that want to become better leaders. At the end of each chapter, there's some questions. So I'm just going to throw these questions out here, add them on to this podcast. Number one, do you consider yourself to be a good leader or a good listener? Excuse me. Do you consider yourself to be a good listener? Why or why not? Question number one. Question number two, how do you think others might perceive your communication style? You think they say, man, this dude, every time he talks, and I don't understand what he's saying. Are you a effective communicator to where people understand exactly what you're saying? Number three, do you find it easy to express yourself clearly? If so, why? Or why not? Number four, what do you consider to be the essential element of effective communication? What is the numero uno, the key element of being an effective communicator? And number five, do you think there is anything you can improve about your communication skills? If so, what would you like to work on? What would you like to work on? If you guys have any questions or concerns, you can always email me at wmanthonybaxter@gmail.com with your questions, and I'll be glad to get back with you. We're also doing workshops throughout the King County area. So if you want a workshop of character building, hit me up at that same email address, wmanthonybaxter@gmail.com. Until next week, you guys take these tools, apply them into your life. We'll get together next week, y'all, to let me know how things are going. But until then, y'all have a fantastic week, and I'll see you on the flip side. Good night.